This was something I've been thinking about really since March. When I was in the process of getting hired by the first customer service job, which was really a canvassing job where you go around promoting the products of various affiliates of theirs. They had us watch these harassment videos, like do a harassment seminar where you basically fill out a bunch of slides and answer different scenarios about what's appropriate in the workplace and what isn't. And concurrent with that, we were having these conversations, and I've always said that, like, for me, the dress code stuff at most places is acceptable in terms of, okay, they want you to wear this shirt, they want you to have these types of shoes, slip resistant usually. That stuff is whatever. It's not a big deal to me. But I was annoyed by the idea of possibly working at a place like that and have being expected to piss out hundreds of dollars just to, like, have the suits and ties and whatever other stuff they called themselves wanting me to wear. And as I was thinking about that seminar, because it ended up coming up again about 2 or 3 weeks ago whenever I was trying to work for the other place, I couldn't help but think about how the United States, the person that they chose to lead them not even a year ago, is someone who, and like, what this is true even if you like him, someone who swears with regularity, who has called political opponents all types of different names, put out the phone number of good old Graham in South Carolina, really just has done a lot of unprofessional stuff. But then when you also factor in the E. Jean Carroll case and the different allegations of misconduct that he's had here and there, what I'm getting at is, it's hard to take a lot of that stuff seriously when that's who the leader of the United States is. Like, I'm not saying I would go out and go, oh, well, since Trump can do this, then I'm also going to do this. I'm just explaining that it's difficult to take a lot of this stuff seriously. All these, like, supposed standards in terms of attire and etiquette, and then you see how even like Trump, for example, he has the attire down, right? You always see him wearing his little suits or whatever, which I've said before is kind of sad, because I think that it's all, like, homogenized when it comes to men's clothing, but whatever. What I'm getting at is, it's crazy to see him physically embody that idea of etiquette in terms of attire, where you got the suit and tie, always professional looking, blah 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 blah, right? But then when you actually break down his conduct, whether it was, I mean, I didn't care about the Twitter thing, but that was something that was brought up repeatedly. Oh, he was always on Twitter, tweeting this and tweeting, and again, that's something you wouldn't do in a professional workplace. But it's just crazy to think that they want you to believe in these ideas of standards relating to, like, either clothing or conduct, and then that's who is in charge. That's who millions of people voted for, to represent them. A person who, whether you again like or dislike him, is pretty frequent about breaking certain standards when it comes to the way that he either speaks or is claimed to have behaved. I'm not going to get into all the legal stuff here, but it's it's all part of that, like, growing disenfranchisement I have, where, like, as a kid, I mentioned I used to have all the relatives that would complain about haircuts and a lot of that stuff that again goes back to appearance. But when the essentials of life are not met, as we've talked about, with how if you work a job and then you can't survive off of it because the place is barely using you, or the cost of things just skyrockets to obscene degrees, you're just not going to care about images and appearances. It's not, because it's like that's always second fiddle to what you actually need. Like, uh as I was talking about with that second customer service job, they look really nice, right? They have all the little suits and ties on, but the actual behavior of these people is something else, where they're sitting up swearing, and uh, they can't even remember to tell you, hey, this thing that we sent you, fill it out so you can actually sell things to people. Just again, that idea of like having appearances down, but then when it comes to the way that they conduct themselves, it's anything but professional. And this is the same thing with Trump, where you look at him and you say, again, always wearing his suits and ties, very professional looking, but then he's cursing left and right. And really what I'm trying to convey here is that I truly believe, this is just my opinion, if someone is delivering something of substance, it could be a political message, it could be a product they're selling, it could be, just anything, whether it's a service, whatever, something that they're trying to like push. If they are delivering a service of value, I truly believe a majority of people in this goddamn country will not care about if they have tattoos, if they're wearing a suit and tie, if they're wearing flip-flops. Because it's like we're at a point where, most people in the U.S. are poor, can't afford $1,000 emergency. And like most of us just don't have time to sit here and get bogged down in the minutia of what someone looks like. It's so sad to like, go and work at places like this where they push the whole, dress code and appearance crap. And then that at the same time as they're pushing this stuff, their leader, the person representing us as a collective, is, not embodying any of the professional stuff that the dress code is supposed to indicate. And the bastards who are pushing you to go out and look whatever type of way are so goddamn desperate that they're having to keep circle the wagon on these different job websites every 2 to 3 weeks, because the people they hire start working there and then they're like, oh man, this position is kind of ridiculous. Well, I'm out. Like, I don't know. The idea again of like the suits and stuff is that your attire is supposed to be indicative of your success. Like, you kind of manifest it as in terms like, oh, see, I look professional, so I'm going to act professional, and people are going to think I'm successful because of the way I'm dressed. And it's like, man, come on. Like, you guys are another desperate affiliate that has to, again, keep circling the wagon to get someone to work for you. That's why after I quit those bastards in March, it took about a month before they were trying to, they do this thing where they post the same, like, they post a listing and they leave out the canvassing part, and they post under like a code name or a different name. And then when you start to work, when you start to like actually do interviews and, get stuff scheduled, that's when you start seeing, oh, this is the same address. Oh, this is the same like layout of the building. Oh, but yeah, I even said before, maybe in a different life, if, I was making 3, 4, 5 grand off, a month off of either a job or YouTube or a combination of both. And, when I went down the street, I didn't see tents and different, very obvious sightings of homeless people. And, we didn't have a president who, who was found liable for I mean, like, I'm not even gonna bring up the E. Jean Carroll thing like to its totality, but just if with someone who didn't have stuff like that, didn't have the 91 criminal charges. Maybe if all those factors weren't there, I would care. I would actually, be concerned about appearance and attire. But I said before that, like, my own state of affairs and the state of affairs of a lot of people, including those that are like employed and make more money, is that we're in like this burning building, and people are like varying to what degree they're cognizant of it, in terms of like, oh man, I can see this guy, only has like 7 or 8 shirts, or they are fretting about having to pay $30 or $40 for a pair of shoes we want to get to work. Like they can see, like there's some level of awareness that they have, but it's like they still want to play into this like belief that we still are in the 50s or 60s or 70s, where it was normal for everybody to like actually be living in a house, and when people had children, they actually for the most part took care of them. Just they're not able to recognize that this is the United States, and a lot of its people are basically just like on the decline. They're sinking. And again, all this appearance stuff, it was cool 30, 40, 50 years ago when people were much better off now in general than they are today. But in current times, it's just not something that I would give a damn about, especially knowing that the conduct of the people that wear that stuff is not what it should be.